Hello, math students. Welcome to our first video. This is Module 1, and it's called Ratios and Unit Rates. And the lesson is actually called Ratios. Okay, so we'll be working in Module 1 for a little while, and the first lesson is called Ratios. Our goal for today we will learn about ratios and ratio relationships. The question that I want you to keep in mind during the lesson is, what is the difference between a ratio and a ratio relationship? So things to learn. First off, we're going to start our learning tonight by looking at a task. And the task is, a co-ed soccer team has 4 times as many boys on it as girls. We say the ratio of the number of boys to the number of girls in the team or on the team is 4-to-1. We read this ratio as 4-to-1. Okay. So if we're looking at the task, it says the co-ed soccer team has 4 times as many boys on it as girls. So what is the task about? The task is about a ratio of boys on the team to girls on the team. And when you figure out what that ratio is, you're comparing boys to girls. So for every 4 boys, there's 1 girl. Okay? The quantities in the task are boys and girls, because quantities are the nouns that make up the task. So the nouns in this specific scenario are boys and girls. So we're making the table, so it says number of boys, number of girls, total of players. So we have 4 boys for every 1 girl, and in total there would be 5 players altogether. So when we're talking about a relationship working with ratios, the relationship describes the quantities. And usually when we're trying to identify a relationship for a ratio, we read it with a certain sentence frame. And the sentence frame goes like this. It starts with for every, and we can apply that to any ratio that we're describing. In this one specifically, it's going to say for every 4 boys on the soccer team. Is that what we're talking about? Yes, on the soccer team, comma, there are, or there is, in this instance, we change it to is because there's only 1, there is 1 girl. Okay? So that's the relationship. The relationship is describing the comparison between the 2 quantities. So for every 4 boys on the soccer team, there is 1 girl. Okay? So remember the word relationship? You're describing the comparison of the 2 quantities. Okay? So is the ratio of boys on the soccer team to girls on the soccer team big enough to make a team? So the question is the ratio of boys on the soccer team to girls on the soccer team big enough to make a team? So we have 4 boys for every 1 girl makes 5 players. So the question is that big enough? And because I'm not really a soccer player, I don't really know. Okay? I don't know what the total number of players are. But if you have to have 5 players, then my guess for that is that it might be big enough. I don't know, because in total there's 5 players. So that's an interesting thing. Maybe I have some soccer experts that we can talk about that tomorrow and you can tell me. But one of the things that we want to be able to extend and be able to do in this lesson is we want to make a table to show some more team sizes with a ratio of 4-to-1. So again, we have the number of boys compared to the number of girls, and then we have the total players. So we have to say the number of boys is 4, the number of girls is 1, and the total players would be 5. Well, what happens if the number of boys was 8? So remember, for every 4 boys, there's 1 girl. Well, if we drew out 8 and we said, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, we know in this little group that there's 1 girl, and we know in this little group that there's 1 girl. So how many girls in total? The answer is 2, right? Because here's a group of 4, and it says for every 4 boys, there's 1 girl. So this has to be a girl right here. 1 girl here, 1 girl here. So that gives us in total 2 girls. So then the total number of players, I have 8 boys, I have 2 girls, so my total number of players is 10. Okay? So now the next question is, what if I had 3 girls? Okay, so I know that I have 1 girl right here, right? How many boys are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 1 girl right here, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have 1 girl right here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, because the ratio says for every 4 boys there's 1 girl. So here's 1 group, here's 1 group, and here's 1 group. So how many boys in total was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this would be 12 boys. So then the total number of players, if I have 12 boys and 3 girls, that means that I have 15. Okay? So that gives us the different sizes of the team. Now we're going to switch gears, and I want you to try filling in this table. It says that your ratio itself is boys to girls, okay? And what you are supposed to figure out is, can you solve the missing parts? The ratio is 3 to 2. So in this one, it's saying for every 3 boys, there are 2 girls. For every 3 boys, there are 2 girls. That means total of 5 players. Again, what happens if there's 4 girls? So again, we have a girl here, a girl here, a girl here, and a girl here. How many boys for every 2 girls? It says for every 3 boys, there are 2 girls. For every 3 boys, there are 2 girls. So here's 2 girls. Do you see them? 1, 2, 2 girls. So how many boys would there be? For every 2 boys, or 2 girls, there's 3 boys. So we have 3 boys on this side because there's the 2 girls, right? And then 3 boys on this side because there's the 2 girls. So in total, we have 6. So 6 boys, 4 girls, that gives us 10 players altogether. Is this making sense to you? I sure hope so. Okay, so what if we have 9? 9 boys this time. Remember, every 3 boys, there's 2 girls. So we have 9 this time. So let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it says for every 3, there's 2 girls. For every 3, there's 2 girls. For every 3, there's 2 girls. So how many girls in total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one has to be 6. Okay? And then 9 plus 6 gives you 15. Okay? So now it's saying you only have 1 1/2 boys, which is ridiculous because I don't know how you can have a half of a boy. But basically, you're asking yourself to cut these amounts in half. So half of 3 is 1 1/2. Half of 2 is 1. And then when you add those together, you get 2 wholes and a half. So that's how you would figure out that one. Okay? Now, the next one that we want to use to help you is having a model. Because sometimes a table is okay, but sometimes another way that's very, very helpful when you figure this stuff out is to use a model. And the model that we're talking about in this one is pictographs. So in pictographs, you actually draw the pictures. Picto means picture, picture graph, okay? So in this one, we're actually going to draw a little picture. So it says boys are 3. So I'm going to draw 3 boys, and I'm going to use rectangles for the boys. So there's 1, 2, 3. And then for every 2 girls, and for the girls, I'll use triangles. So this right here is called a pictograph. Okay? And so we have this situation right here where we have 3 boys for every 2 girls. And so the question would be, how do we know what 1 girl would be? So if we did that, we would have to cut this guy in half to make it equal. So 1 for you, 1 for you. So this girl gets this one, and then what do we have to do with that one? Cut it in half, so each side gets 1 1/2. So that's how the picture helps us. Okay? Another way to do it is using tape diagrams. And a tape diagram is actually a piece of tape divided into that number of sections, but you have to remember that sections are the same shape and the same size. And so we have boys to girls, and it says that there are 3. So we take a piece of tape, and we have 1, 2, 3. So this is the same size as this and as this. So there is a piece of tape cut into 3 sections that are the same size and the same shape. Whereas down here, we are only having 2. So there's a piece of tape cut into the same size and the same shape. Well, if we want to use a tape diagram to figure out what it would be for 1 piece of tape, right, then we would know that this one gets this full piece, this one gets this full piece, and then we have to cut it in half to be equal. So this one would look like this. Let's see how I can draw it. Actually, I should have just done it like that. So here's, okay, that's kind of confusing. But so it would be 1 1/2. So this is the amount, and this, and then this is just extra. That was that third piece, because right here, see how that's the third piece right there? So if we had 2, that would go to there, that would go to there, and then we actually cut it in half. So what you're actually seeing for 1 is 1 1/2. So that's how we would use the tape diagrams to help us. Okay? So models are very helpful. We have the pictographs where you're actually drawing the actual pictures, and then we have the tapes that are showing the actual tape diagrams. And then we're going to go back to this, and it says, what makes something a quantity? And there are 3 things that actually make it a quantity. And the 3 things are, it must have a number, that number has to be positive or negative, and it must have a unit. So let's go back to our original one where it said we have 4 boys. So the question is this a quantity? And you would have to say yes, because it has a number. There's the number right there. The number is positive, and it has a unit. So this is the unit. These are units, right? This is the number. Okay? So this right here would be considered a quantity. Okay? Then we need to talk about a ratio is not a quantity because it only has a number. So when you're looking at a ratio, you sometimes see 1 to 2. Well, this right here is not a quantity. What is it missing? What it is missing is it's missing the units. So a ratio is not a quantity because it only has a number and no units. So I'm going to put that right here, and no units. So it can't be a quantity because a quantity has to have units. A ratio relationship has words that describe the ratio, so it is a quantity. Okay, so that's the difference between a ratio and a ratio relationship, is that the ratio just has the numbers, whereas the ratio relationship adds the units. So this is a ratio, 3 to 2, whereas this is a ratio relationship because it says 3 gallons to 20 miles. So it has the units. It has the number and it has the units. So this one is a quantity. 7 to 3 is only a ratio because it doesn't have the units. 7 minutes to 3 math problems. This is a quantity right here, and this is a quantity right here because it has the units. So ratio relationships are quantities. Ratios by themselves are not quantities because they don't have any units. Okay? All right, let's try it. The last thing that I want you to do, write a ratio for the number of pets to people in your house, a ratio. So should you have any units? I'm going to give you a hint. No units, just a ratio. Okay? So write a ratio for the number of pets compared to the people in your house. So I can't give you the correct answer because I don't live in your house. So you need to count up the number of pets that you have and the number of people that you have, and then write a ratio. Write a ratio. Don't put the units. Write a ratio relationship for these ratios. So right here we have a ratio, but it's not a relationship until you put the units. So I'm going to give you a hint on this one. Must have units. So be very careful when you do this one. And you're going to do it right now, okay? So I'm going to finish the video and you need to finish it up. So you're going to write me a relationship for this one, a ratio relationship for this one, a ratio relationship for this one, and a ratio relationship for this one. And I will check those during my PLC check, okay? So remembering the difference between a ratio has no units, so it's just the numbers. A ratio relationship has to have numbers and units in order for it to be a ratio relationship. Okay? Kiddos, we went through a lot of different stuff in the lesson today, but let's take a look at our goal really quick. Today we will learn about ratios and ratio relationships. I can happily say we did that. The question for the today was, what is the difference between a ratio and a ratio relationship? And the answer to that is, ratio relationships have quantities, ratios do not. Ratios are just the numbers. Okay? All right, kiddos, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you all tomorrow.